So Zero Hanger released their top 10 players that'll be out of contract over the 26 season. So I thought, hey, why not? Let's go through and give some early thoughts on whether these players could leave, should leave, where they should end up, should they stay, or are there even going to be any clubs that come chasing? So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go from the top down. Zak Butters. Now, I do agree. A couple of people have pointed out that I kind of am talking about Zak Butters as if he's 100% leaving and we don't know that yet. Okay, granted, I'm with you on that. I understand a lot of the conspiracy theories around where's Ken going to end up and all those sorts of things. But hey, Josh Carr could absolutely be the best fit for him. He could absolutely be staying in South Australia. Do I, as the biased Hawthorn fan in me, want him to come to Hawthorn? Yes. Do I want him to go to Victoria if it's not at the Hawks? No, absolutely not. No, I would rather him stay at Port. His preferred landing spots, feels up to me, would be Hawthorn 1, Port 2nd, no one else 3rd. In terms of the unbiased way or the unbiased nature that I try to bring to the channel outside of the Hawthorn-centric videos is the Bulldogs would be the favourite if he decides to leave. Just absolutely. And then you've got the dogfight between a Geelong and Hawthorn, although where are you going to get the assets from? Because even though he is a restricted free agent, Port Adelaide are just going to match the contract. Because why wouldn't they? Or you could get band 1 compensation, which if, Port finish 5th bottom, let's say, pick 6. You're going to get a shitload more than pick 6 for Zak Butters under this current climate. If a 30-year-old Petrarca lands you 3 first-rounders and some seconds, you're getting 3 or 4 firsts for Zak. I just think that's a fait accompli at this point. So, where are they going to get those assets from? The Bulldogs probably have got better access to assets, you would think. The two, though, that stand out assets-wise, and this can kind of lead into Zac Bailey as well, is Carlton and Essendon. Collingwood are going to be interested. Absolutely they are. But the fight that I kind of have here is I don't think anyone is going to be able to offer enough money to Zach that makes that compensation pick worth it. Therefore, you're going to have to trade for him. So, whilst the Bulldogs would be favourites in terms of what they might be able to offer up, as to what that is and how they do it, not sure yet. Don't actually know. Would that involve someone giving up a first for Ryley Sanders? Would Ryley Sanders be included in the Port Adelaide deal? Which, if Tasmania weren't a thing, would make a lot of sense. You'd probably happily give up Ryley Sanders and 3 firsts for Zak Butters, wouldn't you? I would. 100% I would. But the Dogs would be number 1. Carlton and Essendon would have the assets. So Carlton, of course, have got their and Sydney's first picks for the 3 seasons, or especially they do for 26 and 27. So that helps. You might be able to get something back as well, a second and Zach or something like that. So that works. The Bombers have got assets to burn as well. So in terms of draft pick capital that they would be able to get access to, so that works for them as well. But overall, if I had to put money on it, I would say the Bulldogs. Let's move on. From Zach with a K to Zach with a C. Bailey, we know Adelaide were really into him. We know Essendon were really into him. Both of those work perfectly. Again, hand up, would love my Hawks to be there. Overall, I just don't think he's going anywhere. But granted around Zach as well is that he's usually signed his contract extensions in the off-season. Was doing a bit of Googling on that before I started recording. So there is a very real chance that he has taken off the market. Overall, I think Brisbane are just, why would you leave? In terms of, there's not going to be kind of club disgruntlement. Are you going to be able to, how much is Coyne going to have an effect? He's going to be, 25, 26 years of age with already 2 flags under his belt. But it's not as if you're kind of jumping off when Brisbane dive, because they're not going to. Yes, they don't have, a 22-year-old key defender. Andrews and Gardner aren't exactly young. But other than that, everyone else that's coming through is still going to be at a really good age. Fletcher, Wilmot, the Ashcroft brothers, Dunkley certainly not old, but older. But McCluggage is definitely not old. Again, as we know, Lohman is not old. Gallup, Morris, Oscar Allan coming in is not old. Draper's not the oldest either. And a gluttony of others. Sam Marshall, we'll see what ends up with him. You're going to get Daniel Annabelle in this draft. You could be getting the 3 other academy boys that are coming through. Jisoo, Walker, or Waller, and Bridge that'll come through. So there's not as if there's not replenishment there. This club's not falling off a cliff. Personally, I don't think Zach's going anywhere. And if anyone could lure him the best in terms of career, money, and opportunity, it's probably Adelaide. if I'm being honest, but I'll keep my fingers crossed for the Hawks because if I was to make a top 5 favourite non-Hawthorn players in the league, 2 of the top 3 are the 2 that I've just spoken about. So from there, let's go to Sam Walsh. A few Hawthorn fans were interested in getting Walshy last year. I can understand why. I just think that the Hawks, if they again wanted to do that, but I don't think Walsh is going to leave Carlton. I think if he did, clubs would line up. Collingwood stand out in a massive way in order to get him because you've got the Nick Dacos confirmed, you've got Ned Long, and then Hope pretty much around the mark. You know, Perryman played a little bit in there, but then sort of went back a little bit. You know, Josh didn't play there enough, but hopefully should be playing there more. Allan looks like he's going to get more opportunity, but is that going to be in the centre square or is that going to be on a wing? Harvey Harrison, we haven't seen a whole lot of yet. Harry DiMatteo, we haven't seen a whole lot of yet. So there's a bit of guesswork around the Pies midfield. Walsh fixes that. Craig McRae himself has said that players over picks. Walsh fits that beautifully for the Pies. He really does. In terms of some other clubs off the top of my head, in terms of better than Carlton, Geelong would have, gone after him quite a bit, but how? Like, what are they, how are they going to do that? I mean, it's Geelong. They'll figure out some farmland. They will. But overall, I think if Walsh did leave, I think Collingwood would probably be in the box seat. The Bombers would make a lot of sense. Melbourne, I think, would make a lot of sense. I know Viney and Steele are still there, but as sort of the bridge number 1 guy between those older players and then the youth of Trent Rivers and these kind of guys, Harvey Langford, Xavier Lindsay, these guys that have come through, he would probably be a really good fit there as well. Let's go to Ben King. So Collingwood and Geelong are, of course, going to be around the mark. Melbourne, again, could really use a key forward if the desire to come back to Victoria works. St Kilda, of course, with Max would be stupid to not throw bonkers money at him. Do they even have any left at this point? Would be, of course, the guys to sort of go after in that regard. As unlikely as it would be, could you somehow lure him with a shitload of money to West Coast, for example, would be a really good way to go about it. Port Adelaide would be kind of a dark horse here. Again, a lot would have to depend on how the list looks and all those sorts of things. But again, in terms of fit, which is kind of what we're looking for, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Richmond given the list build, but if a number 10 on this list, I should say, is Tom Lynch. So trying to get a replacement there long term. I know they've got Fall and Armstrong that fit the bill there, but it would be, I think, inconspicuous to go down that mark. With the loss of Charlie Curnow, Carlton would make a lot of sense, even though if you've watched my mock draft video, I am very excited about the prospect of Aiden Schubert potentially ending up at Carlton. I really do, but Ben King is going to have no shortage of suitors in the slightest. So from there, let's go to Lachie Neale. And I kind of just feel like if he didn't move this offseason, which of course he didn't, he's just not going to. He's going to be, how old is Lachie Neale going to be? Is he going to be 34 at the end of next year? Lachie Neale, date of birth. This is really good. Lachie Neale of birth. Sure, just forgot to write the word date. 24th of May, 1993. Yeah, so at the end of next year, he's going to be 33, not 34. So yeah, I mean, would it be more beneficial for, say, a West Coast if you wanted to lure him to Western Australia? Of course, he is a South Australian boy. Just, again, Adelaide would ask the question to be that kind of spacing, accumulating kind of guy. I've got no qualm with them doing that at all, but if you wanted to lure him to WA where he has played footy before, I believe his partner's family's from WA. I could absolutely be wrong on that. Again, the West Coast one makes sense, but it could probably make as much sense on significantly less coin as a rookie selection spot to go get Tom Mitchell, for example, and have the standard set that way with the extra 12 months. So we'll see. But I think I'd be surprised if Lachie Neale plays in another club next year. I really will. Now, let's go to a couple of youngsters. Then this creates a really interesting conversation. Darcy Wilson should not go anywhere, and St Kilda should not let him go anywhere at the end of 26. In a modern AFL where wingmen actually do have a semblance of importance around anything but the All-Australian team, it seems, although I did like the fact that Zac Bailey ended up on a wing, and a couple of years ago, I think it was Goulden and Josh Dacos off the top of my head, that ended up being the All-Australian wingman, which was awesome, but Wilson's two-way running ability was great. He did have some struggles last season. Like, he did get dropped to the VFL. He put up unreal VFL numbers, has shown himself to be classy in front of goal, and alongside guys like Ollie Dempsey and all that, Wilson does have the potential to launch himself into stardom first. Superstardom is going to be relatively unlikely. Stevie J on Triple M called him the next 350-game player of the young crop, which I thought was really interesting. But overall, I think he would be I think it would be almost neglectful for St Kilda to let him go. In terms of clubs that could go after him, ironically, it's the team of the bloke underneath him, the Bulldogs. Imagine him and Joel Frazier being wingmen for the next 10 or 12 years or something like that. Would be genuinely ridiculous. In terms of quality, there would be an abundance of other clubs that would look into it as well. Collingwood would be a really good fit if you wanted to stay in Victoria. GWS would be a pretty hot property in terms of what they could go after in that regard. I probably forgot GWS in the Sam Walsh conversation too, but I think we should bring him into that one a little bit as well, to be honest. But Darcy Wilson probably should not go anywhere, and we can move on from that. Ryley Sanders kind of already talked about a little bit, so I'll keep this short, sharp, and sweet. He is going to be the poster boy of Tassie attracting local talent, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, Adelaide chased him pretty hard. I think that they could go and do that again. How much of the Tasmania chase has an effect on Ryley is going to be a really interesting question. Considering the draft capital that Tassie are going to have, the Bulldogs are probably going to get a better return from a Tassie trade than they would an Adelaide trade, especially if they both asked for, say, a first-round pick. I mean, one of the Tassie traded picks, I think, is 12, for example. If Adelaide, again, finish any higher than 6th next year, that pick is going to be worse. So why would you send him to Adelaide? They're going to make a decent enough team better, so they're going to be competing with you, and you get a worse pick. Just doesn't make sense in the slightest. I would like to see Ryley dominate for the Dogs midfield, to be honest. I like him a lot. I think the way that he's still got to add an element or two to his game, as most young midfielders do, as most people do in regard to nearly anything. Like, no one's the finished product. But I think he goes. I don't think he's going to end his career as a Bulldog. I think 26 might be the last year for it. And then, of course, if you go Butters in, Sanders out, along with some other pieces as well, the Dogs are fine. They still need a key defender, but jeepers, if you can make that happen, you're in pretty good shape, let me tell you. Let's go to Bailey Fritsch, and I just think he stays a demon. He's just kind of the dependable forward type. I know that he cops some criticism for being a little bit selfish in front of goal and all of those sorts of things, but I honestly think at the back end of the year, he got better with that. I just think on pure numbers, the Melbourne midfield is just not going to be very strong this year. So they are going to have guys long-term that are going to be able to take their opportunity. I know they've got JVR there. I know they just brought in Brody Myercheck, but how much midfield time is Cozzy Pickett going to have? Do you have to sacrifice some of that forward ability in order to get some midfield, not even dominance, but some fight in there? Is going to be really interesting. There, of course, is no Neil Bullen and Spargo who have gone, so Tom Sparrow's role becomes a lot more important moving through. We're going to have to wait and see what we've got from Colton Tolstrup, but they're going to need Fritsch to stick around, and I think they're going to let him, if he does want to go and say, like, chase success or something like that, if that's kind of the realm that you want to go down in terms of clubs that he could sort of end up at. If Kalarchi doesn't go to the Crows, that might be a backup option for them there. To be completely honest, I think Collingwood would be a relatively interesting fit. The Bombers would be an interesting fit post Kyle Langford, although we'll see what they do sort of list build-wise throughout this draft period. If they draft someone like a Sam Cumming, maybe a Bailey Fritsch isn't necessarily what you need, may not fit the list profile, considering that the Bombers are remaining really young in that regard. In terms of sort of an underrated club that could be looking at him, I like the sound of either GWS or Freo. Looking at a Bailey Fritsch, I don't mind that in the slightest. So it would be a really good option, I believe. Ed Allan is going to be a case of how long can a guy with the talent that he's got, and again, I'm not suggesting that he's a superstar, but he's not a scrub. He's nowhere close to that. And if Collingwood are going to go down this players not picks sort of mindset, and he keeps getting squeezed out and keeps getting squeezed out, other clubs are going to come knocking. And I feel like I've spoken about the same sort of clubs with a lot of these pickups, to be honest. But again, if you're looking for a guy that can get on the outside, Adelaide would fit the bill there in a big way. Carlton need a wingman. I think the Bombers would benefit greatly for doing that. Fremantle would benefit for doing that. Geelong would benefit from, that kind of inclusion. Gold Coast, although, again, you'd be able to pay sort of top dollar because of the academy guys, but would he fit in that, best 23 or whatever it may be? GWS would be a really good fit. I wouldn't begrudge the Hawks for having a look, depending on what they want to do on their wings, considering I'm still not a massive buyer of Harry Morrison. CJ's gone. You've got D'Ambrosio. But if Weddle becomes the wingman that I hope that he does, that kind of becomes moot, to be honest. Wouldn't mind North Melbourne having a look in terms of a quality player under the age of 25. Don't mind that in the slightest. Melbourne on a wing opposite Ed Langdon, but I think they might have enough depth there. Caleb Windsor, Xavier Lindsay, and Harvey Langford spent some times on the wings this year. So I think they'll be okay in that regard. I don't mind Port Adelaide as a landing spot. Richmond, kind of your long-term Camden McIntosh replacement in terms of you structurally on a wing, would work kind of nicely. Sydney on a wing, you lost Ollie Florent, I should say. I know you've got Matty Roberts and Riley Bice. One of those would probably have to move up to a wing this year, you would think. And of course, West Coast and Western Bulldogs, he'd be a relatively good fit there as well, not denying that for a moment. So from there, we go to Tom Lynch, and I just think the answer is he stays at Richmond. How many premiership contenders out there don't really have a good tall forward option? Collingwood went after Jack Buller. They got rid of Brody Mychek. They really like Charlie West. So although those guys are not necessarily launching themselves into superstardom, I just don't see that happening, to be honest. But Hawthorn are going to be relatively happy with their talls. Deer is going to get another year of development into him. Chol is still not necessarily old. Hopefully something happens with Mitch Lewis. But again, if that doesn't work out, the Hawks are going to be chasing Ben King a lot harder than they would chase Tom Lynch. Consolation prize style. I just think that's the way that it's going to work out for the Hawks, to be completely honest with you. And then you go Geelong. I just don't think Lynch is the answer. Like, they've gone after key forwards when they've been young enough. Like, they went after Curnow. They're going to go after King. I just don't think this is a good time. Lynch is just going to stay a Tiger forever, I think. So, not that that's a bad thing. It's contributed very well to them. He has been an almighty star for what Richmond were able to do throughout their successful period, and can hopefully be the bridge between Harry Armstrong and Jonty Fall and Thomas Sims becoming better players. So that would be the hope moving forward. But they're my thoughts on Zero Hangers, top 10 off-contract players. Guys, what do you think? Comment below, let me know. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.